Welcome back to the next section of Traefik Training. In this section, we're going to understand everything about the Traefik API and what it actually offers. The API is enabled in the traefik.yml static configuration, as you see down below. It's actually been enabled all along, but we just haven't taken advantage of the API itself. We can then, in the dynamic configuration, create a host rule. So basically give it a host name or give Traefik itself. So they call it Traefik-ception, where you're actually using Traefik to access itself. And then we're actually using, for example, traefik.localhost/API to access the API instead of an IP address. Ensure, and it's very critical here, that the API should only be best practices to use it only in development or test environments. However, if you do enable it for production, please ensure it's secured, you have authorization middleware enabled, and restrict the IPs only to your internal networks if possible. So please lock it down because it really gives access to your entire Traefik configuration, and that's kind of a security risk. Now, what does the API actually offer us? You can see the various endpoints available, and this is all available in the documentation, but you can see API HTTP routers. You can see exactly how it works. Now, as I mentioned, it is actually already enabled. So let's go over to our browser and you can see, here's our dashboard. But if I go to the API, so I'm using the same, and you see 404 not found. And I see this many times in the forums. I see this everywhere where people say, hey, I enabled the API, but it doesn't work. Actually, if we go back here and let's just copy the router path, you actually need the full path to the API call for it to work. So it doesn't work. So API HTTP routers. And there you go. You can actually see the API return the results this way. And we can actually play around and see services, for example. So let's go here and take services. So you can see that the API is actually returning everything there is. So you can see there's our error Docker, there's our internal, there is, let's see, load balancers, API internal. So you can see all the configurations available within the API that's actually seen in the dashboard. It's very helpful. You could do some programmatic changes here. You can actually make some changes with the API. It's really great. But again, please secure this as much as possible. So that's actually the API endpoints, what's available here. Again, I'll drop the link down in the notes below so you can see exactly what's available and how to enable it. And that is all for the API endpoint section. Join me as we go over to the command line interface and ping and understand more how health checks work.